My name is Sven Rusbom, and I have been the scientific leader of this museum in 18 years, I think. And now I'm retired, but I still work with Vikings and the Viking questions. This will be a very short lecture about the Viking myths and helmets. And I start with a special man. This man. No, this man has not a helmet. But inside of his head, there is still remains of his brain. The man lived in the 3rd century after Christ. He is now at Silkeborg Museum in Denmark. I have taken this photo myself, and I found him very interesting. You can ask many questions at such a meeting. Was he born in the area of present-day Denmark? How was his childhood? What did he learn during his lifetime? The answer is that you can find everything in his still preserved brain, but it is for us a hopeless closed archive. This is the great and dominant problem for us when we want to understand the history. Which archive and which museum collection can convey relevant knowledge for us? How big is this knowledge compared to the knowledge we need to have if we wish to reconstruct the history and making us a living three-dimensional picture of what had once been? Today's topic is about Vikings. This is a world-famous term from Scandinavian history. Ever since the 15th century, there has been talks about strong men from northern Europe. In 1434, a large church meeting was called in Basel in Switzerland. The Swedish bishop Ragvaldi was present. He sat and listened, and finally he became annoyed by an argument between the Spanish and English participants about which country who had the most genuine Gothic history. The bishop of Växjö rose and announced that it was of course the Swedes that had participated in the Trojan War and Swedes that had defeated the wealthy Roman Empire. 1434. Ragvaldi did not speak about Vikings, since the term had not yet been coined in the 15th century. During this period, wars between Sweden and Denmark were very common. Now, history became very important. The fight was about which country had the oldest and most honorable history. During the 16th century, the Swedish Archbishop Johannes Magnus published his famous work about kings of Swedes. He published it in Italy. Interesting historical facts now saw the light of day. From the Bible, Johannes Magnus found that Noah's grandson, Magog, had a son, Sven, who founded the Kingdom of Sweden. The land surrounding Lake Mälaren and Stockholm was indeed the land of Eden in the Bible. You didn't know that? This is one of many tapestries that the Swedish king Erik XIV had made in the 1560 for his castle of Kalmar. Here you can see King Svenu in something meant to be a Swedish landscape. Everyone of you sitting here today are thus misinformed about religious history. The paradise of Eden was in Sweden, and Eve gave Adam an apple to eat, really where Stockholm Castle is located today. During the 17th century, Sweden became a superpower. The country was once again at war with neighboring Denmark. Now both these countries needed more material to glorify their own fantastic history. Fantastic medieval manuscripts about Vikings had been discovered on Iceland. In Sweden, the National Heritage Board was founded and antiquities across the country was catalogued. These antiquities proved the right to be called the center of the world. In the late 18th century, we had a king here in Sweden, Gustav III, who was very fond of making theatre, and once he also wrote a play about the Vikings. It's not a good play, I can promise you that. He called it Frigga. It was a play with motifs that the king got from a place called Old Uppsala, just 60 kilometers north of Stockholm. King Gustav III needed a background painting for his play on the theatre. He called upon a French artist, and the result you can see here. This was a typical Viking temple, as the king believed it had looked like. The king used the knowledge that existed at that time about temples, and of course it had to be a temple of stone like those in Greece and Italy. Temples still standing. The nature surrounding the temple was typical for the nature north of Lake Mälaren 1,000 years ago. It was a Swedish wilderness with seas, deep forest and high mountains like the Alps. Surprisingly, we had Alps in the area of Stockholm. All fantasy. Notice the cave. It was a central part in the painting. From this mysterious cave, the old force is streaming out, telling everybody that Sweden was the homeland for the civilization on Earth. The king was not pleased with the first background drawing to his play. There was something missing. It was not a true background for a Viking play. He made a new painting. Now the visitors are inside the cave and they are looking out of it, seeing the wilderness and the famous temple. The king has placed a typical Swedish animal as a stone symbol, protecting the temple. This was an animal that you could find in a typical Swedish forest in the time of the Vikings, the lion. But the king was still not happy. When the premiere took place, the background looked like this. The temple is now inside a cave. A cave that was a symbol for that the power of God came from the force in the old Swedish nature. The king has placed 2 runic stones in the front. One runic stone has been cut into the mountain. The visitors should here see the connection to Moses and the holy stones of the law giving on the mountain. Of course, this mountain from the Bible once stood at the place Old Uppsala in Sweden. If you ask anyone in Sweden at that time, in the year 1788, everybody should say that this was exactly as it was in the times of the Vikings. Because the authority has said that this was the truth. This is another example in modern time of the same ideas that Gustav III had about the Alps in Old Uppsala. It's from a modern Viking film now shown on Swedish television. Hedeby was a big Viking city on the nowadays border between Germany and Denmark. No, there are no Alps in the north of Germany. I will conclude this short lecture with the problems of Viking helmets. During the 18th century, opinion about the helmets of Viking was formed. Here you see some examples. The drawings are made of Johan Wiedefeld, a Danish artist. I think this picture is rather interesting, especially the one down to the left. The Vikings were obviously stately, strong, blonde and blue-eyed men, just like me. They were of course all warriors, and thus all wearing helmets. Most of them with impractical and in battle very dangerous horns. Horns on a helmet first shows up during the 19th century. Some argue that it was Richard Wagner who introduced these to make the actors in one of his opera looking more striking on stage. I believe that this can be true. Some famous helmets has been found north of Uppsala. They found them in a ship grave dated 1,500 years ago. That means that they are older than the Vikings. Here you see one of them. No horns. But the museum had to make them more interesting for the public. This is, as you see, real living history inside the walls of the museum. The truth is that only one single well-preserved Viking helmet has been found in Gjermundby in Norway, and it had no horns. One helmet. It's not much to go by when showing armies of Viking warriors. But suddenly another helmet was found in modern times in Kiel. It looks like this. But my friend, at closer inspection, it was revealed to be a helmet for the German Luftwaffe in 1945. It was produced by Siemens. Well, I had to finish my lecture, but I must of course show you my own helmet. Even people from China are interested in Viking helmets placed on blonde, tall and very beautiful Vikings. Thank you.
Thank you very much.